Welcome to Reframe Your Mindset for Success. With me today is Rany. How you doing, Rany?
I'm very well, Paul. How are you?
Really good, really good. And what have you been up to this week?
Well, the usual stuff, Paul. One is, helping myself get over some of the football results that we've had.
Same it
But
up.
yeah, but joking aside, it's going into January is always a month which has presents a lot of challenges. But yeah, it's been a busy week. Working very much on the new publications, and and just preparing really for the season ahead.
Brilliant. So when you talk about the new publications, just for the listener, what are those?
Well, as you know, being in the publishing industry, there's always new ideas that are presented to you, and something that I've always wanted to do was to sort of maybe expand on the expert profile family. And we're looking to introducing a couple of new publications, very much targeting the business aspect from the original concept, and also focusing a little bit more on well-being.
Oh, great, great. Sounds really interesting. Well, let's explore that more in a moment then. But as you know, Rany, I tend to start the podcast with your story in as many words as you want to tell it. So it's a kind of beginning that's over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say my story is unique in any way, shape, or form, but certainly, I mean, I've been in business pretty much all my life. I left school at the age of 16, not intentionally. I lost my father whilst as I was a teenager, which kind of, as you can imagine, anybody that's lost a parent that early on, it was a difficult time for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you kind of it's a time where the boy becomes a man, and albeit you're still going through a grieving process, there's still life has to go on. And for me, it was my mother, who was obviously still very young herself. The future looked bleak, and it was time to sort of step up. And it was then, we had a lot of family and friends who were also in business, which kind of gave me the confidence, or maybe the belief that I could do something similar. And the story sort of very much started from there. So for the early days, I was very much in retail.
Yeah.
So a lot of different sort of retail projects that I took on. And as you do with lots of things in life, you continue to evolve and improve in terms of what you're doing. And it sort of I fell into sort of more of the service based industries. And as you're well aware, right now I'm in the publishing industry.
Yeah.
I wrote a book a few years ago, just sort of before the pandemic kicked in. And being a big fan of writing, and certainly the sort of media side of things, it kind of all sort of fell into place, and here we are today.
Yeah. And the book that you wrote, it's called.
Yeah, the book's called "Life's Biggest Con." You are not who you think you are.
Yeah.
It's very much around. I wouldn't. I mean, the genre maybe is around sort of personal development, but it's a little bit deeper than that. I mean, some people might describe it as being spiritual, but it's not a word that I often like to use myself, because a lot of people have a different perception of what spirituality actually means. But it's just delving a little bit deeper into the human mind, and as to who we actually think and believe about ourselves.
Brilliant. And what was the inspiration for writing the book then, Rany?
Um, Well, for me, I would probably take it back about 20 years ago, when I changed a certain direction in my life. I I went from a place where I would describe as the sort of young lad's attitude of enjoying life, albeit you worked hard, you played hard.
Yeah.
And I stopped drinking, and I started to sort of follow a lot of the sort of sort of household names in sort of personal development. And albeit I didn't really have a book, um, in my mind at the time, it was always something that I wanted to do myself.
Yeah.
I think that's really kind of what. time is always, you've got to have time if you want to write something like that. So when you're working and you're sort of running a busy life, it's not always the easiest thing to do. And I think then it was always the opportunity when it arose. I decided to put something together which was based on my personal experiences, and certainly something which I thought would resonate with more people, not just from, as I said earlier, alluded to being personal development, but certainly also around the sort of spiritual aspect of who we are as people.
Brilliant, brilliant. So we'll explore that in a little bit more in a little bit more detail as we go on. So to take the leap from writing the book into publishing, how did you manage that? Because that's kind of if you haven't done it before, how do you then just move into publishing?
Um, it's like everything, Paul. I've always been a person that doesn't mind trying new things.
Right.
I don't have I've never had the sort of mindset in that, if you want to do something, you put your mind to it, you can do it. So for me, again, my love for sport, especially, as you're well aware, like sort of football and boxing and so forth.
Yeah.
I've always been a bit of a collector of magazines and sort of media publications, even growing up. And as I say, it's always something that I wanted to do. And so the opportunity kind of arose itself, from the book. And I suppose also when we went through the pandemic, I've been in the events industry, and that sort of came to a halt, which gave me the additional sort of time. And the other thing is, Paul, you come to a stage in your life now, we're getting on a bit now, but where you want to give something back, and you learn so much through your own personal experiences, but then also you sort of end up connecting with the likes of yourself,
Yeah.
people who've also been on their own personal journeys and have got a lot to share. So what I wanted to do really was to create a community that, it wasn't just, as I said, not just about creating a community that would help, but it's more about serving other people. And that's where the sort of project of Expert Profile came about, is that I wanted to get like-minded people together that had not just a passion for doing business, but certainly had a passion for helping others. And I think that's kind of how that project has evolved.
And I know from reading the magazine and being involved in the magazine, you've had some amazing business, sports people, TV personalities involved. How's that been? Is that been enjoyable interviewing those different types of people? And have you had any favourite interviews?
Yeah, look, I mean, look, first and foremost, you feel so privileged and honoured that these people actually gave up their time to do that. But I think what you realize is that even with these celebrities and people in the public eye, they're very much like you and me. They
Yeah.
go through the same sort of problems and challenges with their lives and minds, and I think the beautiful thing is about they may be a little bit more open to, not always, but to sharing some of those stories. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say there's always a favorite, but everybody's unique in their own right. And I'll probably say I've enjoyed the experience with every one of them, and it's always left me very humbled, after the interview, and as I said, very privileged and honoured to be able to do that.
And obviously I meant the favourites after me. So just to be clear with
Always, mate, always.
that. Brilliant. So as you know, the podcast really focuses on mindset and
Yeah.
reframing your mindset. So why is mindset so important to you?
Well, Paul, I think the mind is everything. Every experience, everything we do in our life, everything, it's the filter. Everything comes through your mind. So mindset, I don't know, mindset's a modern word, that we use these days for attitude. And anything and everything that happens in your life is determined by your attitude. In essence, we can't control things, or we want to control situations and outcomes and people and so forth. Unfortunately, that's not something that's possible. The only thing you can control is your attitude. So for me, it's everything. It's
Yeah.
everything you sort of, from a day-to-day basis, is based on your mindset. If you're having a good day, I always say, is based on your mindset. If you're having a bad day, is based on your mindset. So for me, it's, that should be at the forefront of everything that you do on a daily basis. Is, your attitude towards people, your attitude towards say situations that arise, challenges that arise, and even your sort of feelings. Because I think as people, we focus so much on how we feel all the time,
Yeah.
and if we only did things, or we only took action when we felt good about ourselves or good about our lives, then I think we wouldn't get much done.
Yeah, no, it's totally agree, and it's amazing how many people can get upset by what can sometimes be really small things, rather than things that maybe you should get upset by, which are on a grander scale. But that makes a lot of sense. How would you describe your mindset then? If I was asking you,
I
Joe.
think my mindset is always to be as adaptable as possible as an individual.
Yeah,
And I think the key word always is for me, Paul. And as I said, this is something that's um, developed over time, is awareness.
yeah,
Now, for me, awareness is everything. In when on a as I say, when you're thinking, when you have anything, any type of thought or feeling, it's usually affects us, or it impacts us, because we don't have the awareness of what's happening. And if we can develop more awareness of what's going on in our minds at any given moment, I think life becomes a lot much, well, certainly for me, it's become a lot easier to handle and manage. And I think more importantly, I've allowed life to happen. Um, I don't resist things. I don't try to force things. I try to live in a place where, yes, you plan, yes, you have, I'm not here to say that you don't plan for the future, and you don't put things in place in terms of how you would like your life to be. But I think more importantly, I allow it to be the way that it is.
yeah.
And I find when you're in that place, some of the decisions and choices you make, you're a lot more comfortable with.
Right. Okay. So it's very much about having that awareness of how you feel in any given moment. Then.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think because the feelings, we're often so controlled by everything that happens. It's always about, oh, I don't feel like doing this, or I feel like this today, and I feel like that today. No, we have challenges in life, and some people have more challenges than others. And sometimes some of the adversities we go through, or it may be an illness, or certainly you've lost somebody in your life, and these challenges are very difficult to overcome. But I think more of the sort of more or I would call, the less impactful things that happen on a day-to-day basis. If we had a little bit more awareness when somebody, well, for example, you may feel a little bit frustrated, or you may feel a little bit irritated by something, or you may feel angry, or you may feel, some of the emotions that we used to. I mean, you just gotta allow them. You let them be. There's no point. Like I say, if you don't have that awareness, of course they will make you feel uncomfortable, and you more than often you probably react to those feelings. But I think if you have that awareness of when they do arise, that they are just feelings, and they're not something that you need to control. It's not something that you need to prevent from happening. I think you'll find that you're less, as I say, when you become less resistant to them, you don't mind when they happen. You
Yeah.
don't try to prevent. You don't try to put things in place where you don't fear certain emotions, like, for example, feeling anxious about a situation, or feeling, disappointed, especially with people, or situations in your life, or outcomes. So it's very much, as I said, it's allowing things to happen though, as they are, believing that everything has its place, and just having that little bit more awareness of those thoughts, and not attaching yourself too much to them.
Well, that's really interesting because I mean, to me, listening between the lines there, it's about being a little bit more relaxed if you're a little bit more aware, and then being less judgmental. Because what we tend to do is we tend to judge ourselves or other people based on our feelings or their feelings, their emotions. When actually, as you're saying, if you just got an awareness of it, then you can be more relaxed around what plays out rather than judging it by a set substandard that you've got that potentially you've just made up at the end of the day of how you're meant to be. So that's quite interesting, Rany.
I think we jump to conclusions. We make assumptions very quickly about what other people are thinking or the reasons for the way they are. I think it's important to understand that the mind is a very complex machine. It's, call it whatever you want, the brain and so forth. Nobody really truly fully understands it. And you often hear people just feeling down or flat or depressed or anxious, and they don't really know why, and they just sort of go through life on this sort of default setting. And I often sort of ask the question: is in times like that, is you know some of the answer that if you do ask the wrong question, certainly you're going to get the wrong type of answer. But is it really that important to always feel good? To always feel like like you should feel a certain way, and to basically react to every thought that comes in your mind. I think it doesn't certainly. It's, well, you can certainly magnify some of those problems, and some of those feelings and thoughts if you keep giving them the attention that they're looking for. And sadly, a lot of people just do that and they don't realize that
Yeah.
it's not necessary. You don't have to. I mean, look, me and you, Paul, there's a day you can wake up in the morning, you can feel pretty lousy, or you don't feel pretty great or motivated, or for whatever those reasons are. But so what? Is it that important? Do you have
Yeah.
to always feel motivated? Do you have to always feel good to do something?
It's really interesting because I call it a mindset technique where I'll aim to play from a 10, 10 out of 10 is the best you can be at the start of the day. But what you've got to recognize is some days you can't be a 10 out of 10, and you don't have to kick yourself for that. You don't have to put yourself down. Sometimes you might be tired, you mightn't feel great, and if I'm an 8, I'm going to play and be the best 8 I can that particular day. And that to me it's that awareness and recognizing just the way you're feeling. A big thing for me as well is also about listening to your body. Is that as you get older, there's certain things I can do and I can't do. So, if you're not fit, you're not going to be able to do something. Just listen to your body, and your body will tell you. But it's having that awareness, isn't it? It's that deeper awareness of who you are and how you feel, that goes with that. So talking about that, Rany, what techniques do you have that help you with, you use the word more attitude than mindset, but, your mindset's or your attitude,
Yeah,
on
yeah.
maybe a daily or weekly basis?
I'd say, Paul, again, if I'm honest, I don't. You see, the thing is, for me, I know you've got an understanding of what your life is right now, or the place that you're at, and where you want to do, and what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
But for me, I don't like to use sort of this sort of all mindfulness, present moment thinking. But what I do try to do is that whatever I'm doing in any given moment is to give it my fullest attention. Rather than always thinking about what's next, or you with me. I
yeah,
try, if I can, to find, you know, the enjoyment even in the smallest of things. I don't feel that I need to be excited about life all the time. As I said earlier, I don't feel that I have to, to always be looking for the next thing. For me, finding. I mean, the work that I do right now is it's something that I do really enjoy. And meeting people on different people, it's fantastic. When you're working in the sort of publishing industry, you get a lot of those opportunities. But I really don't use any particular tools for, because I think it just puts the additional pressure on you that if those tools then don't work for you, for example,
yeah,
then what do? Then you're thinking, well, I've done this and I've done that. I still don't feel any good, or I don't feel any better than I did, or I feel worse. For example, I mean, sometimes you can put things into practice, and I've seen people do that, and they get more frustrated because now they've put a lot of effort into feeling better, or good about themselves, and they still don't. You with me?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's a very it's not a very nice place to be. It's a little bit like somebody who overthinks or worries a lot. They then When they then worry about worrying, or they overthinking about overthinking, it's just a vicious circle. I think somewhere along the line, you've got to put, I generally believe anyway, you've got to put less emphasis on always analyzing yourself, always
Yeah,
analyzing situations and feelings and thoughts, and just letting them be. Just allow them. It's just there isn't really any point in trying to always. You don't have to have an answer for everything. You don't have to try to understand everything. Just like we don't always have to understand why other people are a certain way or why situations in our lives are a certain way. Equally, I do genuinely believe that, albeit, yes, it's good to have certain tools and certain ways of dealing with situations or your life as a whole. But I also believe that it's not that important. And that's not to say your life's not important or you're not.
yeah,
It's just sometimes I think that there is, too much emphasis put on how you should be as a person. And I think that pressure itself, it's almost like when you're telling people you should be happy. Really? Why? All the time? If I
yeah,
always say if you want to be happy, then you've got to be prepared to be sad because you're not going to get one without the other. If you want to be
yeah.
excited, be prepared to be bored too. You can't be excited all the time. You can't be, happy all the time. It's just not how it works. You've got to be prepared to also have the opposite. And I think it's again that comes back to the awareness that you one doesn't come without the other. And when you do have those moments, I always believe that the happiest moments often come after the saddest moments.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
And equally, sometimes the saddest moments come after the happiest moments. So you just got to learn to accept that is how the human mind works, and that's what society, I suppose, or life in general has created somewhere the human, because we're always in conflict, aren't we, with our sort of conscious mind and what I would call our sort of instinctive reactions to things.
Yeah,
Um, and unless we can understand that, those some of those what I call dangerous or deliberating questions that keep coming to our minds of why we're not happy or why we feel the way that we feel about ourselves and about our lives will never go away. They're always going to remain. You can't beat it. You've just got to understand it.
yeah. Do you know, listening to what you've been saying, there's a couple of things that come out, and you actually used the phrase. The first one from what you've explained was, for me, the Beatles song "Let It Be," and you actually used the words "Let It Be," believe it or not, just before, just let it be. And then the way that you're talking about balance, the yin and the yang in life, and
Yeah.
accepting those, that kind of flow. I guess it's accepting the flow of life, isn't it? Being
You
aware
have
of
to.
it. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. You just got it's because there's not a lot you can do. I mean, we always, like I said earlier, we want to be in control of everything, and then we only feel, one of my favorite sayings, or should I? It came from the famous Anthony Robbins. Never forget it. I heard it about 20 years ago, and hopefully I'll mention the way that he said it. It's that your happiness is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with.
right. That's a great quote.
Yeah. Now, uncertainty is inevitable because we cannot predict what's going to happen next. It's
Yeah,
inevitable. Everything in our lives are uncertain. So if we're always trying to overcome uncertainty, whether it's through um, you know, acquiring things, or whether it's through whatever it might be, you think that's going to help overcome it. You'll never overcome uncertainty. Uncertainty will. You got to live with uncertainty. You got to live with the things you can't control, and the better you can live with those things, the better you will feel on a day-to-day basis. The more exciting life becomes. Because I'm pretty confident if everybody knew everything that was going to happen, we'd be very bored very quickly.
yeah, definitely, absolutely.
So,
You mentioned Anthony Robbins. I read and listened to Anthony Robbins a lot in my early days, and his stuff's really, really powerful. Are there any other influences? Anybody else that's helped you develop your mindset and the way that you see life now?
Oh, loads of people, Paul. I mean, look, I've always, been an avid sort of reader. My library of books from the Jim Rowans, as I said, right the way through to even likes of, sort of Deepak Chopra's work and, Anthony Robbins and a lot of the philosophers have gone, and even today, you still, I think, because it's like anything, the mind is a muscle, like in any part of the body. You've got to feed it with stuff, and if you can do that, it does certainly. Not that I always say that you necessarily need that. I think I'd sooner pick up a book or listen to a podcast like we're doing now, than listen to all the negative stuff that you see on our television screens, on our digital devices. It's
Yeah.
like anything. If you hear nice stories, positive stories, you hear people, doing. I mean, this is a great thing I love about, as I said, going back to the magazine. The people inside the magazine, they're wonderful individuals that want to make a difference to other people's lives. And I think the focus it sort of shifts more on that type of service. And so for me, yeah, of course, it's coming back to your question, there's been so many different people that maybe have influenced even my thinking over the years. But that evolves. Sometimes certain things you may have listened to 20, 30 years ago maybe don't have the same impact on you today. But you've also got to, like I said, I'm going to come back to that same word. If you have that awareness within you, you kind of get to know a little bit more about what the human psyche is, and why we behave a certain way, and why other people behave a certain way, and why what we see in the world, not some of the not so great things, and why they happen.
So, it's interesting because I know what you're saying. That sometimes there'll be a book or a person or something can happen in your life just come to you at the right time. And I was looking at a post on LinkedIn the other day, and it was saying, what's the one book that's maybe changed your life or had a massive impact on your life? And I know one of the ones for me was Viktor Frankl's In Search of Meaning. Such a profound book. Really helped frame a lot of my thinking at the time. And I think it's interesting. We've both obviously read, listened to Tony Robbins as well. Those big motivational speakers. Back in the day, it was still going today. Stephen R. Covey was Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And there's always, at times that book can come to you, or that person can come to you at the right time in your life. And I don't know if that's happened to you as well.
Yeah, look, you absolutely. I think, I mean, like my son now is at university, and I shared with him the Stephen Covey's book and a few others as well. And I said, look, it's personal development is absolutely imperative in life to be able to understand, and especially with the pressures that we're all under on a day-to-day basis. But I think more importantly, Paul, than even reading and listening and watching, is being able to do nothing. I know that sounds paradoxical in one sense, is to be able to not need anything,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not to have to be able, like I mentioned earlier, I don't pick up a book because I need to feel good. I wouldn't necessarily listen to a podcast because I need to feel good. I think those, I always find they, maybe in my view anyway, the wrong reasons. I feel that my own responsibility is if I don't feel good, it doesn't matter. It's not that important. I don't live there. It's you, for that moment, for whatever you're doing in life on a day-to-day basis. It's whatever you're going through, or whatever thought arises, or whatever a feeling arises. And as we alluded to earlier, is you just gotta have that space. You've just gotta have that inner, you know, understanding that it doesn't need to change. I think there's too much pressure that we always got to keep,
yeah,
changing, and always, yes, I agree with sort of like, the sort of self-improvement side of things, or the personal development side of things. That's important in terms of the role you play in life. It helps support what you're doing, but I equally think there's got to come a point where that mind of ours needs silence.
Yeah, it's appreciating those moments in time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Those,
think
each moment in time, and having an appreciation for how you feel, and being alive, and being part of the flow of life.
the thing
And
is,
yeah,
sorry, words are very hypnotic. Language is man-made. It's not something that's real. So every time we hear words, we kind of it creates a reaction in us of some kind. But it's just a man-made. It's conversation. It's not. There's something that's not genuine. You know where I'm coming from?
yeah,
I always find there's everything out there that's man-made, and there's everything out there that's natural.
yeah,
And the natural part of us doesn't need conversation. The natural part of us doesn't need to feel good, doesn't need to be told. And I think that's something that everybody should learn, or should, whether the right word is practice, but certainly spend some time by yourselves when nothing is going on. It's not about what's happening in your life. It's not about what our dreams and aspirations are, what we're going to do tomorrow, and what somebody said or didn't say, and just be. You've got to do. I generally, if there's one piece of advice I would give to anybody out there, is just to spend some time with yourself.
brilliant. So I do, and I'm going to just change the tone just slightly, because I do on the podcast always ask, if you've got a funny story. You've had a long career, adventures, whatever it might be, and that funny story can be anything really. It's just, is there one you could share with us?
Um, I don't. I don't know. I mean, work or business connect. Certainly, I think funny stories with me. If my children were sharing stories about dad, they'd often say that he's always he's very renowned or notorious for having accidents on holidays.
Brilliant.
Uh,
I've done a few.
yeah, I suppose we all do. I mean, I don't drink, by the way. I haven't drank for about 17, 18 years yet. I still seem to have these little pranks and things that go on. I don't know whether it's just when I'm on holiday, I just, relax too much. But yeah, there have been some recent ones. I mean, I had one actually. Is a really funny one, where um, we were in the Caribbean. Actually, it's just me and my wife, and me being me, wanted to have some pictures taken with these sort of wild monkeys, all being trained. I would like to think, and a number of people in front of us had taken photographs with them, and it so happened to be my turn, and for whatever reason, he decides to bite me. And it was kind of hilarious. I thought, well, of all the people he wanted to bite, why bite me? It was, and yeah, I kind of like
Not many people get bitten by a monkey, do they?
I know you don't, do you? I mean, it became a bit of a story while we were out there. So everybody kind of knew that that's the guy who got bitten by the monkey. And luckily, I didn't have any sort of negative repercussions to my health or to my life in any way. But yeah, then recently we were out again. We were on a cruise, and I it was quite late in the evening. As I said, I don't drink, but me and my wife were just sort of walking down, and I happened to slip from the top step and ended up rolling all the way down to the bottom, and to the amusement of a lot of people that were in that area at the time. And yeah, albeit there was a few sort of like faces of shock. At the time I was in a lot of pain. I didn't find it very funny, but obviously when you look back on it, it was quite hilarious.
I've got pictures in because obviously with the cruises you get done up for the evening. I've got a picture of you all done up for the evening and falling down the stairs.
Yeah, no, of course. It's yeah. I mean, there's more. I remember once in New York, I fell off a couple of sort of steps and walked into a glass door as well, and it's just things like that.
The old classic.
Yeah, they're just sort of clumsy, yeah, stories where and and I suppose the sort of coincidence is it always seems to be when you're on a little bit of a break.
Oh, and
Um,
that must be,
but yeah, that
your mind. You see, your excuse got to be that your mind is shut down, and you're kind of in that present moment. You just missed it.
yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah, that helps you cope with. But yeah, it's yeah, as I said, it's just there's so many more of a few things that sort of happened, which I won't bore you with. But yeah, they're just it's holiday pranks, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. So I'm going to bring it to a close there, Rani. And I know that you mentioned just before, because I normally say, what's the last piece of advice that you give to the listeners based on what we've been talking about? I know you heavily really then just said, it's about letting life be. Well, would that kind of be the end point then?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I wrote a second book, which I haven't released yet, called "Allow Life to Happen,"
Oh, brilliant.
and
Right.
it is very much around that, Paul. Where I think if we try to be less in control of everything, so that means less in trying to control our thoughts, trying to control our feelings, trying to control outcomes, trying to control situations, trying to control people. Um, I think we will all be a lot happier, and I think
Yeah.
we'd all understand each other better. We'd understand life better. We'd understand our minds better. Um, I think most people, if they are struggling, certainly with whatever the situation in life, is because they feel like it's out of control, and and that's when I think we're at our worst or unhappiest is when we don't feel in control.
Yeah.
But the point really is you're not in control. You're not supposed to be in control, and you shouldn't want to be in control because I believe that as people, the world would be a very dangerous place if we had control as individuals. But yeah, coming back to the advice really is, yeah, just look, you know, allow life to be, enjoy um, all the individual sort of moments you have more awareness of other people, awareness of your own thoughts. And that when I talk about awareness, I don't talk about being judgmental. I
Yeah.
don't talk about analyzing thought. It's just of being aware that it's there, and you're not going to control them. When they come, they come. If you don't pay them too much attention, especially the ones that you don't like, they go just as quick as they come. And that's the same with feelings as well. The more emphasis you give to feelings, the more you're going to struggle with them, and the more you're going to want to change them, and the more they're not going to change, and the more you're going to struggle. And as I said, it's a vicious circle. I think that's when people really get into difficult states of mind. But yeah, it's just awareness, and the two words is allow and awareness.
Brilliant. Well, Rani, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Paul. And yeah, it's been lovely speaking to you, my friend.